Can I ask you firstly, what does the Commonwealth mean to you?
The Commonwealth doesn't really mean an awful lot to me, to be honest. I studied a lot about international politics, and I've got vague, hazy memories of, I don't know, long historical associations with colonialism because of Britain's role in expanding empire. But of course, in this day and age, we have sovereign states which are equal, and there's much more of an emphasis on the family of nations. I think really it's more of a sense of, a lasting presence of Britain's association with its old empire, but trying to kind of bring together this notion of kind of family and shared values. And of course, what you do have is common linguistical ties and cultural ties. But beyond that, I wouldn't say an awful lot.
Right. Now, you personally are a passionate environmentalist. The Commonwealth Conversation, we recently featured a very moving monologue on our website, which was with a lady called Ursula from the Carteret Islands in the South Pacific, and she was talking about how she and many members of her community have had to leave and move to Papua New Guinea because the islands are becoming submerged. Do you think this is feasibly going to happen to other Commonwealth island states, such as the Maldives, if nothing is done to combat climate change?
I think it's inevitable. I mean, even if we at Copenhagen capped emissions overnight, because of the inertia of climate change, the emissions of the last 20, 30 years will still have to feed through into the atmosphere. Therefore, some sea level rise, some changes to our climate are, I think, unstoppable. The question is whether we get a grip on that and stop it at that, or whether it becomes really, really dangerous. But so many of these small islands are extremely vulnerable. I mean, even something like a half a metre sea level rise could be extremely difficult. So I think preparations nearly have to be put into place already for discussions about what an environmental refugee is, and that we think well in advance and don't just wait till it happens and then suddenly say, oh my goodness, this is a surprise.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to sound fatalistic, but I think the people who live on these islands and their policymakers must have to engage with this in a very realistic way.
So do you think that climate change therefore should be the number one priority for Commonwealth leaders in the foreseeable future, really, over anything else?
Yeah, because in a sense, we've got into this habit of thinking that the environment is just another subject, even if it's an important one. It's another item on the stage. Whereas in fact, the environment is the stage. If you have a world where there's flood and drought and tornadoes and completely unpredictable weather, it's almost impossible to plan or do anything.
Yeah.
And so the difficulty about this, Al Gore said in his wonderful film Inconvenient Truth, this is a challenge to our moral imagination. We need imagination because we aren't in that place yet, but we have to see what it might be like. And it's moral because of the fact that we have ethical obligations to people who aren't born yet and to people who we've never met. And these are enormous challenges to us, but I think that they make some of the pressing issues of today rather insignificant by comparison.
Now, you're also well known in the United Kingdom as a commentator on religious affairs. Do you think that issues like the environment and climate change can act as a really good catalyst for people of different faiths to unite together?
One Muslim friend of mine said to me recently, what's the point in arguing about the battle over the Quran or the Bible if we're both 20 feet underwater? In a sense, it is the great equalising issue. And the fact of the matter is also that some religions have historically, in the last 300 or 400 years, found engaging with this subject difficult. There's a tendency to have a knee-jerk response that says, oh, it's a green issue, or those environmentalists are all a bit kind of wacky, and aren't they all pagans? And I think, in a sense, what all the religions of the world have got to do is go back to their own basics, their own scriptures, and see that care for God's creation and being in balance with it is an absolutely core part of the DNA of their faith. It's not some extra little additional thing you can tag on. It's absolutely central.
Right. And finally,